Have you ever dreamed of living in Sweden? You know those perfect Instagram photos of Stockholm? Flawless Scandinavian design, world-class quality of life. Yeah. I used to believe that story too, but after diving deep into Swedish reality, I discovered things that completely shatter that fantasy. And look, I'm not talking about minor details. I'm talking about serious problems that can turn your Nordic dream into a very real nightmare. Stick with me until the end because this conversation is going to totally change your view of this country. Let's start with the basics, money. And when I say Sweden is expensive, it's not that expensive you're thinking of. It's a completely different level of expensive. Imagine going out to dinner at a simple place, nothing fancy, and paying the equivalent of $50 or $60 per person. At a regular restaurant, you know? We're not talking Michelin stars here. A beer at a bar can easily cost $15 or $16. Yes, one beer. Public transport works well, nobody denies that. But a metro ticket can cost the equivalent of $4 or $5 per ride. Minimally decent hotels start at $150, $200 per night. And the supermarket? Brace yourself. Basic products cost 3-4 times more than in most European countries. You know that feeling when you look at the price and think, this must be wrong? In Sweden, that's your daily routine. Every single day, all the time, your travel budget just melts away, and that money you thought would last 2 weeks barely covers one. But hold on, because it gets worse. Much worse. Now let's talk about something that hurts on another level. Loneliness. Swedes have a reputation for being cold. And this isn't an urban legend. It's real. They value privacy and personal space in an almost extreme way. Making friends with a Swede is difficult. No, let me rephrase that. It's very difficult. There's even a term for it, you know what? The Swedish ice wall. It's literally an invisible social barrier that keeps foreigners on the outside. Expats who've lived there for years report profound loneliness. That kind of isolation that hurts your soul even when you're surrounded by people. It's not that Swedes are rude. They're too polite, actually. But there's a distance. A space that simply doesn't break. You can work next to a Swede for months and never get past hello in the hallway. Invitations to social events? Extremely rare. And when they happen, they follow unwritten codes that you'll probably break without even realizing it. For people coming from warmer cultures, where hugs are common currency and making friends is natural, this coldness can be devastating. You feel invisible, you know? Like you're always looking at a party through the window but never able to get inside. Now we get to a delicate but impossible to ignore subject. The issue of immigration and crime. Sweden has changed radically over recent decades. From one of the most homogeneous societies in Europe, it became a complex, multicultural melting pot. And look, diversity is wonderful, but when integration fails, problems appear. Certain areas of Stockholm, Gothenburg, and Malmö have become zones of real concern. The Swedish police themselves classify some neighborhoods as high-risk areas. Organized gangs dominate entire territories, controlling drug trafficking and creating parallel states. And here comes the shocking fact. Sweden has one of the highest rates of gun violence in Western Europe. Yes, you read that right. The country of the Nobel Peace Prize is dealing with regular shootings between gangs. But wait, it gets worse. Explosions have become relatively common in certain urban regions. Real explosions, bombs used in territorial conflicts. This is practically unique in developed Western Europe. It's surreal to think this is happening in the land of minimalist design and social welfare. Of course, tourists rarely visit these areas, but they exist, and they're often much closer to the postcards than you imagine. The feeling of insecurity that was absolutely unthinkable in Sweden decades ago is now reality for many residents. The integration policies that the country promoted with so much pride clearly didn't work as planned. And now Sweden is paying the price for this failure, struggling to regain control of entire neighborhoods. Let's talk about the Swedish healthcare system, the one everyone praises. Spoiler, it has serious problems. The waiting lists are absurd. I'm talking months waiting for specialist appointments, months waiting for surgeries that in other places would be done in weeks. There are people suffering in queues, literally. And the bureaucracy, Kafkaesque, doesn't even begin to describe it. For tourists, Any medical emergency becomes not just a health problem but an administrative and financial saga. Without proper insurance, you're screwed. Now combine that with Swedish weather. And no, I'm not just talking about cold. I'm talking about darkness. A darkness that consumes. In winter, especially in the north, the sun appears for just a few hours. In some places, not even that. It's dark day, dark night, waking up in darkness, sleeping in darkness. This constant darkness messes with people's heads in profound ways. The rate of seasonal depression in Sweden is high, very high, and it's not for nothing. The lack of sunlight affects vitamin D production, affects hormones, affects mood, affects everything. Many Swedes struggle with serious mental health problems directly linked to these endless winters. And then comes another heavy social problem: alcoholism. Sweden has a complicated relationship with drinking, and part of this is attributed to these brutally dark winters. People seek escape, any escape, from that oppressive darkness. Since we're talking about alcohol, let's discuss the Systembolaget system. Prepare yourself for something bizarre. In Sweden, you can only buy alcoholic beverages above a certain percentage in specific state-owned stores. That's right, government monopoly. And these stores have super limited hours. Want wine on Saturday afternoon? Forget it. Sunday? Don't even think about it. After 3 in the afternoon on Saturday, alcohol simply disappears from the shelves. This reflects a deep distrust in citizens' own ability to handle alcohol responsibly. It's a paternalism that, for visitors from countries with more freedom, seems absurdly restrictive. And how ironic. The country has a serious problem with alcoholism but controls alcohol sales with an iron fist. Does it make sense? Apparently not much. Now let's get into a cultural aspect that catches many people by surprise. The law of Janti. It's not a real law. It's an unwritten cultural code that basically says, don't think you're special. Don't think you're better than anyone else. Sounds like humility, right? But in practice, it's suffocating. Too much ambition? Frowned upon. Want to stand out? Discouraged. Individual excellence can generate social discomfort. This creates environments where mediocrity is accepted and even protected, while those who really try to excel can be subtly punished. At work, this means that innovation is sometimes held back, brilliant ideas are moderated, and conformity is worth more than creativity. For people coming from cultures that celebrate individual achievements, this mentality can be extremely frustrating. Let's talk about gender equality. Sweden is a world model for this, right? Well, sort of. Yes, the country is progressive in many aspects, but domestic violence continues to be a significant problem. Sexual harassment cases have made international headlines in recent years. And even with all the parental leave policies, the pressure on women to balance career and home remains intense. And there's residential segregation, another elephant in the room. Many Swedish cities are deeply divided along ethnic and socioeconomic lines. Immigrant neighborhoods are frequently isolated, lacking resources, creating parallel societies within the same city. This perpetuates inequalities and makes genuine integration almost impossible. The educational system also faces crisis. Swedish students' results in international assessments have been falling consistently over recent decades. The introduction of privately run schools funded with public money created a two-tier system where families with more resources get better opportunities, perpetuating the cycle of inequality. Some smaller details that still irritate. If you visit in summer, especially in July, you'll discover that the country simply closes. Everyone takes long vacations simultaneously. Need to solve something? Good luck. Many services simply don't function normally during this period. The famous right of public access to nature seems wonderful until you realize it means strangers can legally camp on your property. And there are extremely complex unwritten rules about outdoor behavior that you're magically expected to know and respect. Look, Sweden isn't hell on earth. Far from it. But it's also not the utopian paradise they sell to people. It's a complex country, full of contradictions, struggling with serious modern problems ranging from cultural integration to sustainability of its famous welfare state. Behind the minimalist aesthetics and pretty statistics, there's a much more complicated reality. Absurd costs, brutal social isolation, growing security problems, darkness that affects mental health, excessive state control, pressure for conformity. These are real issues that affect both visitors and residents. This doesn't diminish the country's genuine achievements. Sweden still has a lot working well, but it's important to have an honest, balanced, realistic view. Not that polished propaganda circulating out there. If you're thinking about visiting or even living in Sweden, go with your eyes wide open. Know both sides of the coin, because only then can you make informed decisions about what to really expect from this fascinating and deeply contradictory country. And you? Do you know Sweden? Do you agree with these points? Disagree? Leave your experience or opinion in the comments. And if this video opened your mind to a different perspective, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content that goes beyond the superficial. Because here we don't sell fantasy. We deliver reality. Raw, honest, and necessary. Until the next video.